All right. You know, I got to tell you guys, you asked for the countdown. You requested the countdown. We made you a nice countdown with great music from YouTube's pre-licensed, pre-approved music so that there's no problem. And then the countdown starts, and you guys are complaining about the countdown. You see, this is why the left loses. Right here. Right here.
We got as close to the 70s porn funk sound that we know our audience appreciates.
Exactly. Exactly.
Bow. Next week's setup, I'm going to be coming in. Did someone order a pizza?
Does someone need their cable fixed? Exactly.
I've got all the tools you'll need.
Exactly. Yeah, we put together that countdown. Some people asked who chose the music. I chose the music, but I'm a nerd for music, so obviously, you know, we take the music that YouTube has pre-licensed, because one thing you can't do on YouTube is use copyrighted music that you don't have the rights for. So YouTube gives you a full library. So that was a sort of R&B funk sort of pre-show. I did select some other themed pre-shows. I have a reggae themed one that we'll probably use next time. You know, I'm a music nerd. I love curating music. So even if I have to use the YouTube library, I'm still going to be a total nerd about it and pick different songs for different evenings and things like that. But this time, since it was the first one, I wanted something smooth. You know, I wanted to get you guys lubed up for this. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought, especially, you know, that second track in there is called Mulholland. I like that one. You know, the first and the third are, you know, they're just sort of simple grooves. That third one has a nice little melody, I think. I like it.
You can almost feel the Harry Bush with that music.
Yeah, exactly. It's the kind of music you could just kind of croon over. You know what I mean? Yeah. It sounds like a great backing track. You could almost sing "Let's Get It On" over that. It would almost work.
You could. I was doing that before.
You were?
No.
I mean, really?
You could. Did a little Temptations.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
A little Barry White.
Barry White, exactly. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was our debut of that feature. It seemed to work. See, we got a nice crowd in here at the start of the show, so that people aren't scrambling, coming in, saying, what did I miss, blah, blah, blah. And in fact, a lot of you guys saw our actual intro for the first time. I could tell, because I saw a lot of reactions. You know, LOL to the intro. That means you probably haven't seen the intro before now, because if you file in late, you don't get to see the intro. So that's songwriter Nick Ingvoldstead wrote that intro song for us, so thank you to him. I want to just start with a question from Gene. How is your computer situation now? So I made a special thank you video for you guys, because you guys really chipped in and stepped up with the donations to help us either fix or repair, either repair or replace our laptop, which my son knocked off the kitchen counter a few days ago. The computer situation is still unsettled. However, we do have a temporary fix. If you notice, I'm back in my office, back in my studio setup with my high school yearbook sort of background set here. I got a monitor, an external monitor that I was able to hook up to my laptop, my real laptop that I normally use for the show. The screen is not working, so I'm looking at an external monitor here with my webcam placed on top of it. So we do have a little studio rig set up here. I will be getting this screen replaced next week, which is significantly less expensive than springing for a whole new laptop. It's still pretty expensive, though, and so thank you guys so much who chipped in. I made a special thank you shout-out video to everybody who stepped up, but we had people giving super chats that night, people giving super thanks on the live stream after the fact. Some people sent me some Venmo cash through certain links there. Patrons stepped up, so it was very, very kind of you guys. Thank you so much. We are back up and running. Not quite full functionality yet, but we are. It's our soft reopen, right?
You saved him a trip to a bridge, contemplation of suicide, and the intervention of an angel who would have had to show him what the world would have been like if he had never been born.
I mean, that is perhaps a bit on the severe side, but when that computer fell off that kitchen countertop, the fate of this whole project did flash before my eyes, because I thought, what if this computer's busted? All my video editing software is on here. All of our stock footage is on here. The clips, the intro, the graphics, everything is on here. And we had a show in a couple hours. But even if we had to cancel, like, how am I going to get any of this back? This is just going to be a massive amount of work just to get the bare minimum back up and running. Thankfully, it just seems to be the screen. All right. But yeah, we are back up and running, and thanks in large part to your guys' help. Thank you very much. And thank you. I'm a Phil-American. I don't remember seeing you here before. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about that. But if you're a new viewer, we've had a lot of new subscribers in the past day, thanks to our Anna Kasparian video. It did very, very well for us. But thank you for the $5. I appreciate that. Don't listen to the haters' amazing intro. Well, thank you, and thank you to Nick for writing it for us.
I have to revise my statement, although they are still very few relative to the comments. We found some TYT stands in the comments section of that video. They do exist, as you would expect. They are as apparently suffering from the effects of a prefrontal lobotomy as the majority report crowd. It's the exact same stupidity. where even what one commented recently, reading through the comments, now I realize that the forced to vote people are the left version of QAnon. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Suggesting that people in a deliberative body actually stand for something and force debate. That is a conspiracy theory. Apparently, the whole country is founded on a conspiracy theory.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's national treasure.
No, I mean, just absolutely pathetic. I didn't read that comment, Russell, so I didn't see that one. But that's not surprising.
It's pretty typical.
This is
and again, it's a minority.
This is how brain dead those people are, though. I mean, and this is why I've said from the minute we started this show, back when we were invested in the Bernie Sanders campaign, back in winter of 2019, the first blog post they ever wrote was Joe Biden and the insufferable weakness of Democratic voters, because this is how stupid those people are. To suggest that elected officials use what leverage they have to deliver for the people who put them there, that is equivalent to a QAnon type conspiracy theory. That is the level of stupidity that you're dealing with these people. There's no way to be nice about it. I'm sorry. I mean, as much as we play nasty bastards here on the YouTube TV, we're actually not mean people. I don't seek to insult people. Okay. The reason we have to do it here is because it's the only way to tell the truth. Right? You have to be honest. Anybody who says that is just, I mean, how far gone are you? I'll let you respond in a second. Robert, thank you for the $2. Thank you for the $5. Keaton, delete your crack pipe pics before you leave your laptop for repair. Yeah, exactly. For that reason, I'm actually keeping the laptop until the screen comes in. And then when the screen comes in, I'm taking it to the laptop shop and I'm going to pick it up the next day, just so I don't go on a bender and leave it there and it becomes a national scandal. One more super chat before I throw it back to you, Russ. Cyrus, first time seeing you here, I believe. New here, just showing my support. Well, thank you, Cyrus. You're our kind of audience member. Thank you for subscribing. Man, glad we found you, Cyrus. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, reading through those, it's really shit libs the next generation. It's just, they're younger, so they don't want to get their shit libbery from cable news. And they don't want to get it from, I guess, Joy Reid, although they probably have a secret fondness for her. So they get it from Majority Report. They get it from YouTube. They're just getting their shit libbery from the Young Turks.
Right.
But I mean, it's just the next generation of shit libs. Which I really don't understand why you don't just go full establishment. I mean, it's like all the drawbacks and none of the perks.
Right.
It's like deciding to be a Red Sox fan without actually being from Boston. Like, why would you do that to yourself?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a good simile there. All right. Should we get started?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to pick up right where we've left off in our last few segments with some more force the vote coverage. So yesterday we dropped a video about Anna Kasparian and her sort of defiant refusal to acknowledge the merits of force the vote. She went on an attack against Brianna Joy Gray for calling her out. But Brianna also made mention of Sam Seder for flip-flopping on force the vote. He was originally for it until he got a phone call, according to BJG. She says that he got some phone call from someone who convinced him to sort of reverse his stance on it. Whether that's true or not, look, I take her at her word. She had a 3-hour debate with him over that as it was happening, right? Her memory would serve her much more than mine would serve mine when it comes to that, few week time there. But regardless of that, Sam Seder, thought it was a good idea until he realized that the squad weren't going to do it. That was really the turning point as far as all of us can see, phone call or no phone call, right? Once AOC tweeted back that, well, we can't do this because we don't know if we force the vote and the vote goes down. What about step 2? That was her whole thing. The problem is you don't know step 2. Once they signaled they weren't going to do it, a lot of the indie media people thought, well, we can't pressure them anymore because then it's going to make them look bad. And us and our audience, like we and our audiences are all invested in them. So what are we going to do, right? It became this real fork in the road. And so Sam Seder now, just a couple days ago, fielded a question from an audience member about force the vote in a video that he clipped. He clipped this video here. Force the vote. This was what he named the video. Force the vote morons eager to remind you how dumb they are. Right? We're not going to play the whole thing. We're going to play the first minute and 20 seconds, and then we're going to take a trip back in time, not 2 years ago to the force the vote, but back 1 year. And I'll show you why we're going to do that. But first, let's get Sam currently on the record as defiant as Anna. No, the force the vote people were morons. Let's take a brief listen.
Industrial complex. People still claiming that the squad could have gotten Medicare for all if they had just forced the vote, and it's just exhausting. Honestly, you have to be the dumbest person in the world to believe that.
Nobody
Nice
did
straw
believe that.
man.
Or just really,
That's a complete straw man. Nobody did believe that. Right.
Because he can't argue with the actual substance of the argument, so he has to go to a straw man.
Exactly. See, that was a mistake I made because of our countdown. Our countdown is this setup. Our video inserts is this setup. See, I screwed that up. All right. So that was Sam. That was his first response. But then he goes on and he says that's not what they thought. So he starts with the straw man and then he goes back. So let's give him one more minute here.
really invested in it. Yeah. First of all, the vote was going to lose. Their strategy was not that you would get Medicare for all. Their strategy was the vote will lose. There'll be such outrage from the American public that we'll be able to target those Democrats who voted against it for 2024
or 2022.
2022. Do you know how many people those people primaried? Like, we already know a bunch of those people who weren't going to vote for it. None of them were primaried in a serious primary. I mean, it is
insincere.
So I just can't even believe that they actually believe it.
Okay, now hold on a second. For the people who say that we are black-pilled and that we are black-pilling our audience, what he just said is as black-pilled as it gets. What he's telling you is you can't primary the bad Democrats anyway. The anti-Medicare for all Democrats are not getting primaried, so why waste your time? This is as black-pilled as it gets right here. He's saying there is no point. You know, in a sense, I mean, he is making
right. So what are you doing?
As good an exit argument as any, because he's just saying, listen,
so what are you doing?
You're not going to primary anybody. It is what it is.
So why are you supporting these politicians?
Right. Exactly.
Why are you? You're right. It's a complete, okay, welcome to the club then. You are conceding that there is absolutely no point. I was debating one of the Majority Report stands today who was making the point. What you don't seem to understand is that they not only, meaning the squad, they have to not only deal with the Republicans, they also have to deal with the corporate Democrats. No, yes, we get that. We get that. That's the whole point. They caved to them.
Right.
And what did they get for that? Then they'll go to, well, this is how politics is done. Well, it's not politics if you don't get anything out of it. Then it's just stagecraft.
That's what I mean.
Politics.
Who's black-pilled here? Who's the nihilist here?
Right.
You're telling us this is the way it is. It can't be any different. That's basically what Sam just said there. Let's let him go a little bit more. We're not going to hear this whole thing, but we're going to let him go 22 more seconds if my memory serves me right.
Honestly, I think there's three explanations.
It's an oxygen wasting operation.
It's an oxygen wasting operation. Oh, what a waste of oxygen. Demanding that politicians deliver for the people who put them there. Ugh, I roll. What a waste of oxygen.
Totally ignorant. 2 is completely deluded.
Okay, ignorant, deluded.
And 3 is just like making money. And maybe all of those things come together.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good title for our show, actually. Ignorant, deluded, and making money. That should be our motto. That should be our subtitle for the show.
That should really be Sam's motto, because he's got quite a grift going here, where he's got really. My hat's off to you, Sam. You found the dumbest fucking people on the internet to actually watch your show. I know, because I've talked to some of them now, and they are as dumb as dog shit. The people who watch the Majority Report. If you could watch this and come away from it saying, yeah, no, that is the worldview I want to invest in, and never come to the realization that it doesn't go anywhere, you're a fucking moron. Where is all this strategery going exactly?
Right.
He's not telling you. He's making it as if by playing it this way, something's going to happen in the future. And as a reformed doctrinaire Democrat and corporate media addict, I can tell you, you went the long way around just to come back to meet the press land, because this is exactly the same mentality that we were breaking out of when we joined this up with the Sanders campaign. You just took the long way around. Not only did you take the long way around, you ended up in a place where you're not even aligned with the people with real power. You're as nihilistic as any Pelosi voter, only you don't have Pelosi's power. You're not even on the winning team now, but you're just as mindless and conformist as the people who are. At that point, why don't you just give it up and cozy up to the Hillary pack?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's like, yeah, this is the ultimate black pill. This is the ultimate expression of political nihilism here, because Sam is not an avid, outspoken supporter of the Democratic brain trust. Like, he doesn't actually advocate for Nancy Pelosi, right? But at the same time, any serious effort to challenge her power is, oh, well, I mean, come on. That's not going to work. That's going to fail. Yeah, that's going to fail. Look, you're not going to primary corporate Democrats who are against Medicare for all that. You're not going to primary them. Look, 2022 came and went. I mean, at that point, what are you doing? You want to say a waste of oxygen, or what did the guy say into the microphone there? It was a waste of talking, a waste of air, whatever he was saying. Yeah, that is a waste of air. That is a waste of air. And also, just one more point I want to make, and then we're going to take a look at another video. I'll toss back to you because I know you were going to jump in there. He acted like, okay, they're going to force a vote. The vote's going to fail, and then we're going to primary out the Democrats who voted again. Right, whatever. That assumes that the Medicare for All vote would have happened the next day or the next week. No, if they got a promise there's going to be a Medicare for All vote on the House floor at some point in the future, right? It's probably to our advantage to put it, since it is more than likely to fail. Let's say it's in 6 months. Let's say, okay, we're going to have a vote on single-payer health care in June. That gives organizers 6 months to flood the streets. We can organize, right? We can build pressure campaigns. We can build movements to pressure some of these Democrats into voting. Yes, it gives you an opportunity to rally people to the cause. It's not like the vote was going to happen the next day. It's going to happen in 6 months. So build a movement, have a couple of marches, right? Obviously, labor actions would be great. I wouldn't expect Sam to think that that's possible, right? But it gives you time to do something. Instead, no, come on, that's not going to work.
Come on, most of those union guys, they don't even have email.
Right.
How are you going to tell them where to meet? Not only have they taken the long way around to come back essentially to the same place, you've replaced it in the Democrat cosmology. The great liberal utopia is always just on the horizon, except that Skeletor is the Republican Party. And, Skeletor is always doing his shenanigans. And, he won this time, but next time we're going to get him. And and the news just gives you these episodes of battles, these mock meaningless battles between Democrats and Republicans. But as a Democrat, you're always in that headspace. Yes, it's on the horizon. We're going to get to that promised land. We're going to achieve that. The only thing in the way is Republicans, throw out some MLK quotes, the arc of the universe bends towards justice, right? Keep everybody invested. Now these people, they've gone back to the same place, only they're Republicans or the corporate Democrats. And they've been talked into the same mindset that you are going to achieve this progressive utopia, this takeover of the Democratic Party, and it's always going to be just out of reach. It's always going to be just over the hill. It's always going to be, after Pelosi retires, Hakeem Jeffries is in there. But you know what? We'll pull him to the left. It's the same thing. They're always going to dangle something in front of you to persuade you that what you're doing is not a monumental waste of your limited time on this earth, but it is.
Yeah, very, very well said. We got a couple people in the chat here who we haven't seen before. Area under the curve. I'm just here for the shredding of Sam Seder and Matt Lex, smug MFers. Well, stick around for the rest of it. Don't just stay here for that. In fact, like this stream, please, and subscribe to this channel, please. If you're here for the first time, we hope you stick around. We hope you enjoy the program. All right, so now what we're going to do, since we just saw what Sam Seder's current take on this is, we're going to take a trip back in time, not to the beginning of Force the Vote, but to October of 2021, which was when the Build Back Better negotiations were heating up and the progressives were threatening to vote as a group, as a squad, if you will, no on the bipartisan infrastructure bill if Build Back Better was not guaranteed to pass alongside it. Now, we know how that turned out. We know they ended up caving on that. But this interview with a friend of the MR show, Ryan Grimm, took place right at that time. And they set this up, Sam sets this up by saying, well, earlier this year, meaning January, when the force the vote thing was happening, there was pressure on the squad to force the vote. And Sam was concerned that if they had forced the vote then, they may have lost some political capital with the American people and not been able to force a vote now, meaning force BBB to pass alongside the shittier corporate-friendly bill. Did you follow that? I don't blame you if you didn't, because it's that fucking idiotic. But let's hear Ryan Grimm make a case why. No, it was smart. It was smart for the CPC to keep its powder dry, keep their powder dry during Force the Vote, to save it for the real fight, which is now.
Yeah. Yes.
Had they done that? Had they been...
Meaning, had they forced the vote? I'm not going to listen to Sam talk for a minute. Had they forced the vote earlier this year? Okay, had they done that?
Successful. Had they decided this is a good idea for whatever reason, and they had done that, and they had gotten their vote, and they lost their vote, and then that was the end of the strategy. Do you think, and let's assume that also dragged out for a couple of days, because it probably would have.
That's what they're
just like this
for.
one did.
Yeah.
They were calling to drag it out so that it would create some notice that there was going to be a vote on Medicare for all.
Which was January 4th and 5th, right?
Right. And hopefully they get it done by the 6th. But let's just eliminate that, because that would have been very hard to predict that was going to happen. Yeah. But what we do know would happen would be that it would push back the infrastructure bill. I mean, the COVID relief bill, right? Because that came in very quickly a couple of weeks later, and it would have slowed the construction of that bill
by 2 days.
Do you think
by 2 days? Because he's saying it's going to be January 4th and 5th. So okay, the COVID relief bill would have come 2 days later. Yeah. That's certainly reason not to pursue universal health care, because it's going to delay the COVID bill by 2 days. Anyway, go ahead. That
they would be gun shy to do this time.
Okay, sorry. I have to let him start this over again, because this is where it's so dumb, it's hard to follow. So I want to make sure everybody can absorb this.
Do you think that at that point that they would be gun shy to do this time? Like, I mean,
well, it depends on how it played out. But if they took heat for making them look like clowns, particularly while people are voting in Georgia for those two Senate races,
right?
Better not do that.
All for a vote. that then, got hammered. The next time they came back and were like, we need to organize and vote as a bloc, the stink of that would certainly be on the strategy. And you might be less likely to get that key addition, which was they're not centrists really, but the swing district Democrats who were like, no, that you guys are right. We do need to vote as a bloc on this.
Okay. How incredibly idiotic is that? If they had exercised leverage in the speaker vote,
they would have had no leverage.
There would have been stink on that strategy, and there would have been no leverage in the Build Back Better vote. The complete opposite is true.
That's right.
If you showed leadership that you weren't bluffing and you weren't fucking around during the speaker vote, they'd have known they couldn't slip the bipartisan bill past you without passing Build Back Better. It's the complete opposite.
Right.
Demonstrating you are willing to use your leverage strengthens your hand next time around. It doesn't weaken it. How idiotic is that? How mind-blowingly ridiculous is that?
Well, and if you watch how Ryan reacts, really they're playing an improv game. Sam is throwing out a ridiculous premise to justify having gone on the record against Force the Vote. And Ryan Grimm is making up reasons to go along with what he's saying.
Always say yes. Right.
He's saying yes.
Right.
This is for those of you who are not theater geeks like me and Keaton. That's a rule in improv. Always say yes, because you might think that it's funny if the person says Godzilla's outside my window to say, no, he isn't. But then you really have nowhere to go.
The scene. Right.
Where are you going to go?
Right.
Like Monty Python did that with their parrot sketch, but they didn't do that in any other sketch.
Right. So what you say is yes and. So, okay. Godzilla's outside my window. Yes, and he has your wife's bra in his mouth.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, that is my wife's bra. And I was just with my wife last night. You
if
build.
You say
that's how
no,
you build
he
the scene.
isn't. The sketch can only be about, is this person crazy or not?
Exactly. Right.
There's no place else that can go once you say no.
Exactly.
So going back to this, Ryan is playing a political improv game there. Because you can see him following Sam Seder's line, and he's not going to challenge it because they're both invested in protecting the squad from scrutiny and criticism. So he sees where he's going. So he comes up with reasons to back that up. I am telling you, as a reformed corporate media junkie, it is remarkable to me how much of this has all ended up back in the same place. Because this is just like corporate media. It's exactly the same kinds of games they play. They'll bring, some half-assed establishment historian on to give some kind of patina of authority to whatever bullshit spin they're trying to put on somebody.
Right.
I remember them dragging out Doris Kearns Goodwin after Hillary Clinton talked about Nancy Reagan's AIDS advocacy.
Right.
And she says, yes, well, historically, a lot of presidents make mistakes and this will make her a better president. It's the same thing. It's the same. They'll say anything. They'll say anything except the thing that would contradict the establishment narrative, the expected narrative. And that's exactly what Ryan's doing here. Oh, he threw out a suggestion of the direction I'm supposed to spin this. And you can see him thinking it up as he's talking. Right. He didn't have that in mind before Sam threw that out, but now he has to back it up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You could tell by how he was sort of gathering his thoughts as he went, because it's such an absurd.
Sure. It could have thrown a stink on it. And then what then?
If they had failed, let's say they threatened to force the vote and back down. That may have thrown a stink on it because no one would have taken them seriously. But if they actually executed, it would have done the exact opposite.
Well,
I
because
promise
then
you
have to take them seriously when they make threats.
I promise you, Kevin McCarthy is going to think long and hard before he crosses Matt Gaetz now. Yep. He is not, because he knows they're not bluffing. They will drag you through 15 rounds of humiliation on top of humiliation on top of humiliation. They will make you lick their asshole in public on camera if you cross them. And it's very, very, I would be very surprised if Matt Gaetz and Boebert and those 18 others get crossed the way, AOC. I mean, what do they have to show
Well,
for playing
you know
ball? What do they have? What committee
Nothing.
chairs do they have? Nothing.
Well, that's what's really funny too, because now looking at this in hindsight, they're talking about the leverage they have now for Build Back Better. Well, how'd that work out?
Of course.
They didn't
Of
get
course.
anything. They got nothing out. So everything you're saying here, even if you were right about force the vote, even if you, which you're not, but even if you were, okay, your premise is here that, well, now they kept their powder dry, and here's the big payoff. There was no fucking payoff. There was no payoff.
No,
Got
but you
nothing.
don't. Right. Exactly. And look, even
They
the
pulled
treatment.
Katie Porter, who's technically not a squad member. They pulled her off financial services because black faces in high places corrupt paragon Maxine Waters didn't like that you kept embarrassing the money,
Right.
kept embarrassing the donors. You actually have less representation from progressives on committees than you had before.
Right, of course. And look, let's say, right, you force the vote, you take heat from leadership, you take heat from the media, because obviously they would have taken a lot of heat from the media, just as these Republican holdouts took heat from the media for a few days, but only for a few days. We were going to play this later in the show, but I think now is actually a good time. Now that McCarthy won, we have a speaker, we have a functioning government again, the storm has passed, okay, it was a turbulent time. Are these Freedom Caucus people still persona non grata? No, in fact, just the opposite. We're going to play a piece of sound of Chip Roy going on CNN. Chip Roy was one of the Republican holdouts. There's video of Chip Roy finally caving and voting Kevin McCarthy. He gets a huge ovation. They were like, oh, okay, we got him. Good job, right? You kind of, you gain respect from people when you do that. And he goes on the media for this very friendly and chummy sit down with Jake Tapper. So he weathered the storm, and now he's going on a winner, talking about, okay, now we have to get on with, the job that we were sent here to do. And also he mentions, hey, sometimes a little storm is a good thing. Sometimes argument and debate is healthy. Let's hear it from him.
First of all, let's remember that a little temporary conflict is necessary in this town in order to stop this town from rolling over the American people. I don't think anybody on either side of the aisle could say with a straight face that they think that Washington is doing good work for the American people on a regular basis and isn't broken. We have to work to fix this place. And look, some of the tensions you saw on display when we saw some of the the interactions there between Mike Rogers and Matt Gaetz, some of that is, we need a little of that. We need a little of this sort of breaking the glass in order to get us to the table, in order to fight for the American people and to change the way this place is dysfunctional.
See?
Yeah.
See Jake Tapper there? All smiles, not giving him a hard time, not cutting him off, not calling him a traitor, a conspiracy theorist, or this or that. No, they had a little fight. A fight is healthy every once in a while in a democracy. We resolved the argument. We made demands. They gave us some of what we wanted. We took it. Deal. Now we move forward. Simple as that.
Okay. I'm just going to say this because we always want to be fair. We always want to be honest. The media would not give the squad that treatment because it doesn't matter to them what happens with the Republicans. The Republicans are not coming for their money. The Republicans are not coming to tax them. The Republicans are not going to bring in Medicare for all. The Republicans are not a threat to their class in the way that a actually not toothless squad would be. They would not be nice and friendly with the squad. They would be trying to talk about how dangerous they are, how they're radicals. They'd be connecting them to terrorism if they could. Like, they'd be pulling out all the stops. They would not, Jake Tapper would not be smiling at AOC if they really, really constituted a threat to power.
Yeah, but at the same time, look, if they capitulated in the end,
Look what they
let's say
started doing to
Pelosi gave
Ilhan
them.
Omar when it looked like these people were serious. when it looked like they meant business. Look what they were doing to her. Now
Oh,
they
sure.
never,
No,
now
of
they
course.
never talk about her.
Look, of course, a progressive Democrat is ostensibly more a threat to the system than a Freedom Caucus GOPer, right? I'm not going to argue that. Although I do have to say some of the whole like debt ceiling stuff that they're talking about is pretty scary to everybody. I mean, you can really cause a real shitstorm, right?
Sure.
With some of that. But also,
Sure,
I think
sure,
as long
but
as
that's-
Pelosi got the gavel and they thought Medicare for, because they weren't going to, like Sam said, if we're talking about being fair, and this is not conceding to him anything, because we ourselves admit that, of course, the vote would fail. Nobody was under the thinking that the vote would pass, right? It's not like they would actually be
That's such
bringing
an
them to
insane
universal
strongman.
health care. Yeah.
And it's so does he believe that was the ask, or is he just really that dishonest? Is he self-deluded, or is he just a real degenerate liar?
I think he was answering the question that he got because, I think he was creating a straw man, right? He was acting as if there are some people who thought it could pass, which is technically true. Of course, you'll find some people who will believe anything, right?
Sure.
But that was not a fair representation of the force to vote movement, not by any stretch.
There are people who believe that if you grab our political leaders by the skin, you will reveal that they are actually extraterrestrial aliens.
Yeah, right.
But that's
You
crazy.
can find something to anybody. Right, exactly. All right, so we're going to move on. We have a few more segments that we have to get to. Before we do that, though, I do want to ask you, if you are new here, please like this stream and please subscribe to this channel. And you can also support the show at patreon.com/DueDissidence. You can also sign up for free or for $5 a month at DueDissidence.substack.com, which I'm going to drop in the chat here in just a second. I will drop the link. But yes, our patrons are the backbone of the show. We want to give a shout out to all of them. As you can see, the scroll is going across the bottom of the screen now. I want to give a special shout out to Marty. Marty H is our newest patron who signed up this week. Signed up after that last stream where I gave the news that my laptop had been destroyed. So thank you, Marty, for signing up. Very, very good timing, and glad to have you on board here. Patreon members get access to bonus videos every month and call-in access to these live streams. We had one patron caller call in a few minutes ago, and then you must have signed off. If you'd like to sign back in, please do and say hi.
It was the cussing.
But in either sense, if you sign up, like I said, call-in access plus exclusive access to bonus videos. Some of the bonus content that we're going to start putting up is content that we might not get away with saying in public. So our next bonus video is going to tackle the Jimmy Fallon B-52's parody song of the new COVID variant, which is just, it's so outrageous.
We don't even want to get into that subject on YouTube because you just don't know what's going to trigger these.
Right. You never know.
Pops.
So we just don't even want to talk. But the whole point of that segment is that if we had done a parody song like that, they'd have shut us off in a second.
Sure.
And he
Sure.
does a parody song like that and goes viral, basically.
Right.
So that's what we're going to talk about. That'll be a Patreon and Substack exclusive. So if you sign up, you can sign up for $5 a month, bonus content every month, call-in access to the shows. Russell, anything to add? Any responses to any questions before we move on to the next segment?
Well, your dad wanted me to read the shirt, but I can't really do it. Can you do it?
No. The thing is, I don't have this monitor that I got is
Hang
just
on,
a temporary
I know how
monitor.
I can do it.
I didn't spring for the ultra high def monitor, so the font is a little too small. This is Russell's Bernie Sanders 2016 shirt that you got at the Apollo Theater, right?
I did. I was working security for the Sanders campaign. Let us wage moral and political war against war itself so that we can cut military spending and use that money for human needs.
Yeah, so there you go.
I never knew it said that.
Oh, really? You never read the yeah. Never read the specifics yet.
Yes. No, this is a very rare t-shirt. This was just some dude outside the Apollo cashing in on the event. I've never seen this shirt anywhere since.
Wow, interesting. Arpu and Wafy, just me or does Keaton sound like Howard Stern? I don't know. Do I sound like Howard Stern?
A little bit. I could see that.
Do I sound especially gravelly
Because you got
tonight?
that little nasal Jewy thing going.
Okay, maybe. Well, I mean, look, Howard is certainly, he's a shadow of his former self now. He really morphed into just a neurotic lib.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt
He was
Howard
funny
is
back
one
in
of the
the
best
day.
who ever did it in terms of interviews, in terms of content.
One of the best in
Howard
the game.
He's on the Mount Rushmore of radio, so I guess I'm in good company if I sound like Howard. But if I sound especially gravelly tonight, it's because I am plague positive, finally. I lasted a long time. There are 6 people living in my household here, and all 5 of them have had it, and I stayed negative for almost 2 weeks, but it finally caught up to me, and so maybe if I'm sounding a bit gravelly, I feel okay. I had a sore throat yesterday, so I took a test, and I got the second line. And then today I woke up, not with as bad a sore throat, but with a worse cough. But Dayquil seemed to knock it out pretty well, so doing all right. Was able to make it here for all you guys.
Ollie, love your New York accents. Lenny Bruce said it best. He said, if you're from New York, you're Jewish, and if you aren't, you're not.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to know where you guys are from.
I'll
Ollie, where are you
I'll
from?
blow your
I'm
minds
curious
right
to know where you
now.
guys are from.
No Jew is more than 65 times removed from any other. We're all related.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
It is a
part of why
tribe in that way.
insanity runs through the group, because it's a lot of incest going on, really.
Well, yeah, I wanted to, what was I just going to say? Yeah, I would like to know where some of you guys are from, because according to YouTube, a lot of our listeners, like not a majority, but like over 10% of our viewers are actually in New York City. So it's a very New York centric audience.
Is
according to
it
the
over 10%?
Over 10%. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's
That's why
not
Russell gets
surprising.
recognized so much. Russell's teacher for his writing workshop is a fan. He's got fans booking his tour. Russell
Yeah.
runs into a lot of you guys because he's out and about in New York City. I'm tucked away 60 miles north, my cabin in the woods up here.
Yeah.
So Russell's out and about with you guys. Tuskers
Yes.
from Arkansas, Crickets from rural Ohio, both parties are traders from Chicago, Melissa, Northeast Chicago, Franklin, North Carolina, Leah from Hawaii, Mother from California.
Hang on. Was that a North Carolina Jew? Is that what that's
What?
up there?
North Carolina and a Jew. Yes, Franklin Warsham.
That's
Yeah, exactly.
got to be rough.
Represent. Colorado. Another Scott. Okay. Westchester. Okay, Cyrus is from Westchester. All right. I know Westchester. South Carolina. Wow, you guys are very, very responsive to that. Excellent. All righty.
Johnny Ringo, who I placed in the wrong franchise, is from Australia.
Apparently, somebody clarified that in a comment afterwards. Johnny Ringo is from Tombstone. Is he a character in the Tombstone movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and from history. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was a character in the movie.
Yes. And I
Because you
mistook it for,
thought he was a
mistook it
character
for
in
Johnny
what other thing?
Rico.
Rico. that's
Johnny
right.
Rico is the one from Starship Troopers.
Exactly. So, let's do this other segment. This is a related segment. Radical, right-wing, fascist, grifter, Glenn Greenwald, quote
Oh, not
tweeted
him.
fellow
Anything but
right-winger,
that.
fascist, hyper-capitalist, closeted, red-brown alliance member Shama Sawant. He quote tweeted Shama Sawant, right-winger that he is. Shama put out a great tweet, as always, saying it's deeply unfortunate that it was the right wing who've shown how to fight for something in Congress. The Squad, also the Progressive Caucus headed by Jayapal, have utterly failed, refused to use their leverage to stand up to the Dem establishment and win any gains for working people. Glenn Greenwald, like I said, fascist that he is, right-winger that he is, quote tweeted her. In 2020, House progressives and the incredibly radical Squad had exactly the same opportunity as House conservatives had. House conservatives defied leadership to get major concessions to empower them and their agenda. House progressives did what they were told and got nothing. He goes on. This was a pretty good thread here. The reason Squad and House progressives never defy Pelosi or anyone else is because they have had a pathetic partisan media, the Young Turks and Sam Seder, who defend their harmlessness and venerate partisan subservience. He then links to a thread by Brianna Joy Gray, rehashing the merits of forced to vote, which we got into a few days ago. if these Dem loyalists who pretend to be leftists or whatever had even the slightest integrity, they'd apologize. That's what we said a few days ago to Jimmy, etc. Because Gates and company just proved how politics works when you care more about your constituents than head pats from the DNC. Months ago, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene used the leverage she had to make McCarthy acknowledge the power she had among their base and vow to respect it. That's why she was on board from round one of voting. Gates and company got real concessions that make the House way more democratic with vital reforms like this. That's using power. This was something that we didn't mention in our last video, which is a new church committee. Russell, do you want to explain to our audience what the first church committee was? And then we'll go back to this thread. I got to queue up a couple more things here.
All right. So the church committee was the culmination of a series of embarrassing revelations about how there were newspaper articles that came out in 1970, 1971, about how the FBI was spying on American citizens and spying on dissenting groups. But then in 1974, the legendary journalist Seymour Hersh revealed that the CIA was spying on American citizens, which is completely outside of their mandate. They're only supposed to be spying on foreign actors. That led to that plus Watergate led to the creation of the Church Committee, led by Senator Frank Church. And it investigated all of these abuses of power that were going on with the FBI and the CIA, including sending anonymous letters to Martin Luther King, trying to persuade him to kill himself, wiretapping people with absolutely no authorization, spying on women's groups who were up to, talking about trying to overcome male domination in the professions. Just
MK
insane.
Ultra, Operation Mockingbird, those were all revelations, right? Of that inquiry?
MK Ultra, and I will tell you something I know because I run a tour called Weird New York, and this is my grand finale on it. There's a building here where the CIA had a safe house as part of MK Ultra from 1953 to 1966, where they had they recruited a guy out of the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms agent. They recruited him to dose people without their knowledge. They'd be lured up. He would pretend to be a painter or an artist. Very often they'd hire prostitutes. And the CIA was there behind two-way glass, and they'd film people after they were dosed, usually with LSD, depending on what they were interested in. This went on for 13 years until the program was so rogue, the director of the FBI didn't know about it. It was only uncovered because the guy running the operation, George White, was a serious alcoholic. And the inspector general found the liquor bills and asked what program was costing this in liquor. That was how they uncovered the whole thing. So these were the kinds of things that came out in the Church Committee. Like, we did experiments on people as part of MK Ultra worthy of the Nazis. We lobotomized people. We kept people in sensory deprivation for months on end. We administered shock treatment to one woman who later won a lawsuit for a year until she had to be toilet trained from scratch because they wanted to know if you completely zapped someone's identity, if you brain damaged them that bad, if you could completely create a new personality on top, if you would be starting with a tabula rasa. These were things that we did. These are the intelligence services that the liberals are so eager to give more powers to and celebrate and platform. The ones that journalists today want you to celebrate, these criminals like John Brennan.
The norms and the institutions.
The norms and the institutions. The Patriot Act undid the results of the Church Committee. It was the Church Committee that created the FISA courts. Now, we still have the FISA courts, but they're really not doing their job at this point. They're much more toothless than they were after the Church Committee. What we've seen since the passage of the Patriot Act is predictably the intelligence services doing what they're going to do if you let them do it. They're going to start spying on Americans. They're going to start going after people for political dissent. That was what what triggered the church committee, because they looked at it and they saw how dangerous what the FBI was doing, that they were literally, and the CIA, that they were spying on people for having a difference of political opinion. And it is remarkable to be living in an era where the drive to investigate that is coming not from the Democrats.
Right.
It's coming from the Republicans. With the original church committee, they put Frank Tower, a conservative Republican, as co-chair with Frank Church to protect the intelligence services. That was what he was there for. He bragged about that later, that he had been put on the committee to make sure the intelligence services didn't really get dragged through the mud. We're going to see the opposite today. You're going to see, and actually it's going to be worse, because in the end, most Republicans back then were for the investigation. They just didn't want it to go too far.
Right.
You know, but they weren't saying, no, we don't need to look at this. What you're going to get today is an investigation of the intelligence services driven by the Republican Party that is going to be staunchly resisted by the Democrats, and that is going to be smeared by the same media that at one time exposed these crimes leading to the original church.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they're going to have all that institutional power undermining it from day one. Oh, this is a MAGA. This is an extreme. You could already see Hakeem Jeffries.
QAnon.
The extreme MAGA Republicans are undermining, the CIA, the DHS, the FBI, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no, it's just amazing. I mean, who would have thought after 9/11 that it's going to be the Republican Party in 20 years that calls for a check on all of these agencies? Who had that? There was no way. No, you could have gotten 1,000,000 to 1 odds on that. Yeah, absolutely. Tusker says, you guys might find the Congress for Cultural Freedom and its links to the CIA and the U.S. left interesting. All right. I will look into that. Thank you, Tusker, for the $5.
Just don't
appreciate
get us arrested.
All right, so let's get back to Glenn Greenwald. Thank you for that breakdown, Russell. We didn't even really prep that. It would have been embarrassing if you said church committee. What's that? I don't know what the church committee is. I took a chance.
You took a chance, and I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, I took a chance that you knew what you were talking about. Otherwise, we'd have to have an improv game going of our own. We'd be like Ryan Grimm and Sam Seder, just volleying it back and forth, making up some bullshit.
Well, the church committee was started by Martin Luther in 1647.
Exactly. Having a heavily resourced church committee, too, with real will to expose and prevent the U.S. security state from interfering in domestic politics can be a game changer. Avoid the mistakes of the first one that got neutered. Work with Democrats like Ilhan Omar, who are serious. So interesting. Greenwald gives a little shout out here to Ilhan Omar, who liked a tweet saying, I'm not usually a big fan of sequels, but Church Committee 2 is long, long overdue. Did I skip one here? Yes, I did. This is a very important one. This is the most important tweet of this entire thread. No, I'm sorry. That's wrong. Those who need to be kept off the church committee and all committees are those who are agents and liars for the U.S. security state, Representative Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell. Omar was the first after 1/6 to warn against a new domestic war on terror. This is the most important tweet of the thread. I'm sorry. I had it wrong the first time. As long as the squad and HPC have a small army of YouTube hosts, I think he meant CPC, not HPC, right?
Presumably.
Yeah. Have a small army.
I think HPC. I think that's genital warts, isn't it?
It sounds like something. Sounds like something, or like a Hewlett-Packard support line or something like that. As long as Squad and the CPC have a small army of YouTube hosts and various pseudo-left writers to defend everything they do, most will remain captive to the Biden White House, Schumer, and Jeffries. This is the key sentence here. They're gone. Pointless and empty partisans work with anyone serious about these reforms. Work with anyone serious about their reforms. Don't worry about the fact that the squad is theoretically with you on Medicare for all. Because as they've proven time and time again, The fact that they are with you in theory means dog shit in
It
practice.
means
If they're
nothing.
not
So was
willing to
Pelosi,
use-
right? She had signs in the
Right,
basement.
she had signs in the basement. Exactly.
All right.
Work with anyone serious about these reforms. You need cross-partisan coalitions right now. I won't even say bipartisan, even though they kind of mean the same thing, but bipartisan implies that you're going to compromise on certain ideas. I'm talking about cross-partisan. Whereas if you're against the continuous funding of the Russia-Ukraine war, and let's say a free market libertarian is against it, that's an example of a cross-partisan coalition, because you don't compromise on any ideas. You just find someone who's in another camp who has the same idea that you have, right? People's Party and the Libertarian Party are doing a march on Washington on February 19th. That actually is meant to not only oppose the war, but actually demonstrate that key point that a leftist organization and I don't want to call them a right-wing organization, but certainly economically far to the right. They can, if they have common ground on this very key issue, they can ally. And that's what Greenwald said there. And it's hugely important because we've talked about this in the past. The fact that there is ideological agreement between us and AOC on unwinnable fights like Medicare for All and the Green New Deal and, Jordan said a $30 minimum wage, right? What the hell does that mean if those fights are gone? If there's no path to victory there, and the people who have the power, who might be able to leverage their spot in order to extract some kind of policy concession in the direction of those things. And we're not even talking about getting anywhere close to any of those big ticket items. They won't even do that. Then what the hell difference does it make whether you agree with them on those things or not? You have to pick battles that are winnable, find people you can fight them with, and fight with them. That's the name of the game now.
That's it. Defunding the Pentagon. Who's driving the effort to audit the Pentagon? It's Rand Paul. It's not a Democrat. No Democrats are fighting to audit the Pentagon. You want to start getting out of these endless wars. You want to defund the Pentagon. You want to have a federal definition of censorship, tech companies and social media platforms. You want to rein in their arbitrary power. You're going to have to work with libertarian Republicans and civil liberty-minded Republicans.
Of course. Yeah.
You're not going to get that support in the Democratic Party.
This is my dad here. Hi, Dad. I went back and found your comment here. Especially significant is that the GOP holdouts asked for a cut in the military budget. The squad did squat. Yes, that's true. And I think one of the reasons that actually McCarthy was so hesitant to give in is because he's afraid that they're going to give him a hard time over the Ukraine funding. I have a feeling he's worried about that. Not that the Ukraine funding will fail, because there are obviously enough Democrats and enough hawkish GOPers still in the caucus that it will probably still pass without much problem, but it's going to make McCarthy look bad when he gets called out by his own caucus for that, even if it's a minority faction. Because the MAGA base does not want this war. The MAGA base of the party does not want to ship tens of billions of dollars at a time to Ukraine in order to fund World War III.
The American people don't want it without diplomacy.
Right.
And they were saying that months ago. I'm not sure what the numbers are now, but I would imagine they're much higher because generally people, the longer it goes on, the more people start to get disillusioned with war, particularly in democratic societies. So the majority of the American people already don't want this without serious efforts at diplomacy, which is quite the opposite of what we're doing. So what your dad says there.
There's he gave us a super chat. He gave us $47. Thanks, Dad. Give us $47 to plug the January 14th NYC NATO protest. Yeah, there's going to be an event, which we were going to plug it at the end of the show, but since you were kind enough to throw us a few bucks there, I guess we'll plug it now. I'm trying to find the graphic for it now. But there is going to be a protest in Times Square, against NATO expansion, January 14th, Times Square, New York City, this Saturday at noon.
Mr. Weiss, now that you put it on my radar, Keaton might have known about it. I didn't know about it.
I found out about it this afternoon.
Not only will we promote it, I'll cover it because I cover 3 more events. I get a New York City press pass. I've been looking for things worth covering.
In that case, I'm going to have to order Russell his video camera this week, which means our tip jar is out once again, everybody. If you can throw a few bucks in there to help pay for Russell's camera to go and film the NATO protest. My dad got a good start there, $47. That helps a lot. Thank you, Dad.
More money, more money, more money.
Yeah, exactly. All righty. So, yeah, no, there is going to be an event in Times Square this Saturday, the 14th.
I will be there.
In New York. Yep, absolutely. I think Medea Benjamin's going to be there. Yeah, I think they're going to have some fairly big names there. So yeah, maybe you can get some interviews.
Cool. All right.
All righty. Cool. Okay, so that's all we got for Glenn Greenwald. All right, now we do have a story that Russell was eager to get to here. A little bit of an intermission of sorts. This wasn't billed, but it's a little Jeffrey Epstein story. Russell, do you want to set that up, and I'll pull up your link here?
Okay, yes. This has not been getting as much coverage as it should.
I can't imagine why.
I wonder why. It has all of the media's least favorite subjects under one heading. Jeffrey Epstein, his connection to large banks and powerful people. These are not stories the media likes to cover. Okay, so this is kind of a two-part thing. You have two Jane Does who are suing Deutsche Bank and also suing JP Morgan on the claim that they knew about dodgy wire transfers that they really should have been asking questions about, and the fact that they were still doing business with Epstein even after he had been prosecuted for soliciting sex from minors. And now the U.S. Virgin Islands which already won a $150 million suit against the Epstein estate for the sex trafficking on the islands, is now suing JP Morgan on the same grounds, arguing that they knew what was going on or should have, that they aided and abetted his sex trafficking operation and turned a blind eye to it because of the clients that he was bringing in and the amount of money that he was moving through the bank. Now, one thing that struck me about the timing of this is that there's a docuseries that just dropped about Bernie Madoff on Netflix. Now, yes, Bernie Madoff was a con man and he was running a Ponzi scheme, sure. Bernie Madoff was also used as a really inappropriate and illogical scapegoat for all the people who didn't go to prison in the 2008-2009 financial crisis.
Right.
What Bernie Madoff did was completely unrelated. It would be as if there was a huge political corruption scandal and the media decided to focus on a guy who ran a 3-card Monte game on a corner somewhere. That's what Bernie Madoff is relative to the financial crisis. What he was doing had absolutely nothing to do with the larger story of corruption of that era. So they're going to sit here and do yet another. They already did a fictional series with Richard Dreyfuss about Madoff. Now they're going to run this whole docu-series. You know who was running JP Morgan while all this was going on? The very much celebrated Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon, who, Jim Cramer cannot get out the knee pads enough for. At CNBC generally, you never hear a bad word about Jamie Dimon. Okay. Well, he was the CEO. He was the CEO starting in, I believe it was 2005. He took over. So this whole era where they were doing business with Epstein, and it's hard to believe the CEO didn't know about business with a gold-plated client like that, moving that kind of money through the bank. It's hard to imagine he didn't sign off on continuing to do business with a well-known sex criminal. And yet Jamie Dimon is this celebrated figure. Where's the docu-series about Jamie Dimon? Where's the docu-series about JP Morgan aiding and abetting a child predator? To me, that's a lot worse than what Bernie Madoff did. Much worse, much, much worse. So where's the docu-series about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we were talking about this offline a little while ago, and I mentioned, you notice there hasn't been a sort of true crime series about Harvey Weinstein either, right? You would think You would think
yes.
that would be
And I hadn't even
right
thought
material
about that.
for that, right?
Yeah.
There's a pattern here.
Where's the
right?
movie? Where's the movie? Why doesn't Hollywood want to make
Right.
the Harvey Weinstein movie? I wonder why.
They don't go after people who are integrated into the system the way a guy like Weinstein is, the way a guy like Diamond is. They don't go after people who are integrated in the system because let's say you do a documentary, an investigative doc on Harvey Weinstein. You're going to talk to a lot of people who knew a lot about what Harvey Weinstein was doing before it came out, right? There was that joke that it was Seth MacFarlane made at some award show. He talked about how actresses, I forget what the exact wording of the joke was, but the payoff of the joke was actresses had to pretend to be sexually interested in Harvey Weinstein. They had to pretend, that they were attracted to Harvey Weinstein, which hinted and I'm not saying that Seth MacFarlane knew he was a rapist, but he probably knew he was a horn dog who used his power to solicit sexual favors from aspiring actresses. He probably knew he was a casting couch type sleazebag, right?
Right.
Did they know crimes were going on? No, but they knew the guy was a sleaze, right? They knew the guy was a sleaze who used his power in that industry over women. And I think the same is true in a lot of fields. You won't see people go down who can implicate other people in the industry because that becomes an indictment of that entire sector of the world, right? If finance itself is exposed as a giant criminal enterprise, which we here on this channel and everybody in the audience knows that it is, but if that ever gets out in such an explicit way, forget it. That destabilizes the entire system. This is part of the reason why establishment media and establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans went after Trump so hard, because he was a rogue. He didn't have connections in that world that could implicate other people on Capitol Hill, right? He was this like bombastic Ronald McDonald grease-painted business clown, right? Who's going to come in and fuck things up. And they felt comfortable going after him because neither Trump nor anyone in Trump's inner circle was really integrated in that space where it was going to implicate Congressman X or Senator Y, right? It was just a rogues gallery of these creepy Batman villain types, Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, Corey Lewandowski, Stephen Miller. These were not Washington people. So they felt very comfortable going after them because there's not going to be any friendly fire here. We're not going to accidentally hit, the junior senator from Kansas when we're going after Donald Trump.
We're not going to have one of those Clinton accidents.
Right. Exactly. Whereas if you start going after people who are integrated into these systems, you run that risk. And so I think that explains it a lot.
Well, and interesting footnote, 5 days after filing these charges, the governor dismissed the attorney general of the Virgin Islands who filed the charges against JP Morgan in New York without any explanation. But interesting factor here, the governor of the Virgin Islands, current and former, was very involved in getting tax breaks for Jeffrey Epstein. And his wife worked in one of his businesses on the Virgin Islands. So is that necessarily the reason she was fired? Not necessarily. We don't know. The timing is peculiar. 5 days after filing charges against JP Morgan and with no explanation. You would think you'd want to get out ahead of that because of the optics, but they probably felt no one's paying attention, and they're right. I really had to dig to find articles about this. Although to their credit, the New York Times did cover it.
Yes, the New York Times did cover it. Breaking Points, I think, did they do a segment on this? I know Sagar is on the, Sagar has a hard on for Epstein, which is not a great metaphor to use in Epstein's case, but he's on that beat.
He is. As he should be. Somebody needs to be.
Ben Horstman, this is worth about $3. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. What currency is that?
Australian?
Is that Australian?
Is that the Aussie pound? I mean, I'm just guessing.
Let us know. Let us know where you're from, everybody. All right, we have one more segment that we're going to get to, but we have a very good crowd in here, so I do want to plug the Patreon. We had one person sign up while we're doing this broadcast. If you're in the audience, give us a little wave. Tim Tam just signed up as a recent member at patreon.com at 801, so perhaps that was in response to our pitch. If it was, Thank you so much. Even if it wasn't, thank you so much anyway. Tim Tam. We'll put you on the scroll. Patreon.com/DueDissidence. The more members that we get signed up, the more content we can create. It's that simple. Russell is a tour guide. I am a delivery driver. So by helping us keep this project going here, either by Super Chats, Patreon memberships, or Substack memberships, you help keep the show going. The more hours we can devote to this, the fewer we have to work at the day job, and the more time we can spend creating content. So if you like this content and you are able to help us out in any of those ways, we would love you for it. I'm going to post the Substack link right now in the chat. It's DueDissidence.substack.com. Even if you can't sign up for a paid membership there, it really helps us out if you sign up for free. You can sign up for the free version. That just puts you on an email list. It makes it easy for us to get in touch with you. We let you know when we're going to do a live stream. We drop, audio podcasts. We do have an audio podcast, so you can subscribe to that on any major podcast player. And we also do write articles from time to time on the Substack. So signing up at Substack, either as a paid member or a free member, is a great thing to do. Greenwald skewering the squad is fine. Simping for literal fascist Tucker Carlson is not. Look, thank you for the $5. I appreciate that. I'm sure if Glenn Greenwald were invited on CNN or MSNBC, he would go take his message there. I think it's more an indictment of CNN and MSNBC that he is persona non grata than it is an indictment of Glenn Greenwald for going on a major TV show that will have him. I mean, I don't see how you can blame a journalist for going on a show that's willing to help him get his message out when apparently no one else in mainstream media will.
Not only that, we're living in upside down land where Tucker Carlson is the only person I saw do a segment about that church committee. You think you're seeing that on CNN? You think you're seeing that on MSNBC? Where is he supposed to go?
MSNBC's got the people who are going to be investigated anking the shows.
Right.
Not anchoring the shows, but whatever. Contributing to the shows.
A CIA agent cannot retire without getting pitched to become a commentator on MSNBC or CNN.
Exactly.
The revolving door used to be to the defense industry. Now it's to the commentariat.
Right. Exactly.
By the way, I agree with Bad Seed here. We should have a 70s punk soundtrack.
I will put some punk. I'll get a punk intro.
I would dig that.
I'll get a punk intro together. I think 10 minutes of punk might be a little exhausting for some people, but I'll do it. We'll see how it goes. I'm open. Like I said, I'm a music freak. I was one of the last holdouts. I was seeing if I had it there. I was going to show people my iPod Classic. I think the battery finally went on it. Wow. But I was one of the last guys with an iPod Classic. I had about 20,000 songs on that thing. And now I have the Apple Music where I get the unlimited songs. I get it for free with my cell phone plan. I big music guy. So I'm going to create a few different intros with a few different soundtracks to set a few different moods, and I'll rotate them out.
I keep wanting to do this. Speaking of 70s punk, I keep wanting to do this as a guerrilla prank with a hidden camera. The former CBGBs is now a John Vivardos, where they're selling vintage punk jackets for $1,400.
Yep.
I am dying to get some 60-year-old emaciated guy to walk in there with an amp and a guitar and be like, "Sorry, I'm late for the gig. Where do I set up?"
Yep.
Nobody can steal that. I am going to do it one day.
Yeah, that would be a good one. I know exactly where you're talking about. I actually went into that John Varvatos just to go into the old.
It's sad.
Jaunt.
It's
sad. Exactly.
It's sad.
Needless to say, I could not afford anything on the shelf. The cheapest thing in that. So a T-shirt's $80 in there.
Yep. To keep out the riffraff.
To keep the riffraff out. Although the historically savvy riffraff, the tour guide that I am, I just went in anyway. All right, should we go?
They preserved the stickers on the vents. That's about it.
Oh, they did. I didn't look that closely. Okay,
that's it. Yep.
Interesting. All right, let's do our final segment of the evening, shall we?
Let's rock and roll.
All right. So we haven't really covered Jordan Peterson too much, but Jordan Peterson is launching a court challenge as the College of Psychologists is basically coercing him into undergoing political re-education if he wants to keep his psychologist's license or psychiatrist license. He basically wants to practice as a therapist, but they are threatening to pull that license from him if he doesn't get his mind right. So, Russell, you want to set this up a little more while I pull that exhibit?
He's also being sued by Disney for stealing Kermit the Frog's character.
It's a trademark
so
violation.
He's just getting it from all sides.
Yeah, trademark violation, exactly.
All right. So part of the reason I was interested in this subject is I am working on an article about how Canada has turned into a dystopian hellscape very quickly. You know, it was always the cliche, still is in certain quarters, that if things get bad enough here, you're going to run to Canada. That's not looking like as smart an idea as it used to. I think a lot of people forget that a lot of bad ideas have been embraced by the left. A lot of anti-freedom ideas over the centuries have been embraced by the left. Marx was into phrenology. We don't have to talk about, tell our audience, I think, the origins of Planned Parenthood and eugenics. Yes, it does good work. It's far from that now, but Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist, right? You know, we attribute these things purely to right wingers to avoid examining that within left movements, this authoritarian tendency that has come up from time to time in certain areas. Canada is turning into like a left dystopia between killing the poor to save money under the guise of compassionate euthanasia.
Euthanasia, right? Yep.
Imposing legal standards about misgendering. Because remember, they don't have a First Amendment there. And this is happening in other English-speaking countries that don't have a First Amendment. They can pass law. You try to pass a law like that here, it's never getting past the First Amendment. But you can pass laws like that here. There, rather. And so now with Jordan Peterson, who, look, when you debate shit libs, it's not going to be very long before they're going to fall back on connecting you to their boogeyman, which is going to be eventually they're going to go, well, have fun kissing Jordan Peterson's ass. It's going to be Jordan Peterson or it's going to be
coddling.
Joe Rogan.
That's the word
coddling.
that made this show is coddling.
Yeah, you're coddling Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan, or obviously, Trump is the big one. Now Elon Musk has joined their pantheon of boogeymen.
Tucker Carlson, we just had a comment.
Oh, of course,
right?
Tucker Carlson. You got the Tucker Carlson. Listen, this because I want to be clear, because we are going to defend him because I think this is hellish. But my personal opinion of Jordan Peterson, I agree with him about some things. I think some of it.
That would be my opinion of him.
Yeah,
I think he's a very overrated intellect. The idea that he's this major thought leader on the right, I think, is kind of ridiculous. But not the devil.
Look, yeah, but yes, right. To take this Kermit the Frog talking Canadian motherfucker and make him out to be the Goebbels of the age is absolutely absurd. They hate him so much because he is a trained psychologist who brings up uncomfortable numbers. He brings up numbers that don't fit the narrative that relate to feminism and women in the workplace and transgender identity. I've watched him speak on transgenderism quite a bit. He's not saying there are no transgender people or transgender people shouldn't exist. What he says is there are masculine girls and there are feminine boys, and they are not all transgender. And to try to force everybody into these roles is really not the way to treat this. And he's right, in my opinion. But even if you think he's wrong, that is not some kind of a monstrous, anti-human, anti-compassion thing to say. That is not a fascistic observation. He really got on the radar because he criticized Canada when they created that law that you couldn't misgender somebody. And he argued against it as compelled speech. You can't compel me. And when they asked him, well, so if somebody wants to be identified as a female, what would you call them? And his answer was, well, I call them what they want to be called. That's just basic respect. But you can't tell me that I have to. That's the issue. So his views have been really exaggerated. You know, you would think that he would, I'm gonna go misgender everybody. You know, I mean, that's not what he said. He challenged that law. So now, in yet another dystopian twist, the Ontario, what do they call it?
The Ontario College of Psychologists. Yeah.
Okay, so basically his licensing body,
right,
are trying to compel him for some tweets that he did and for an appearance on the Joe Rogan show to submit himself.
Joe Rogan, that's another name. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Oh, Joe Rogan, every time. To submit to political re-education. That's essentially what it is.
He actually has to go to therapy.
Right?
Yeah.
They're sending him to therapy.
Put in his head. Right, exactly.
What can be more dystopian? I am a connoisseur of dystopian science fiction, and that is a running theme in dystopian science fiction. The idea of a government that equates dissent to mental illness, where you have to submit to being fixed for not thinking the way that you're supposed to think. I mean, from Clockwork Orange on down, this is a running theme in dystopian sci-fi, that the government is going to come and tinker with your brain and make you think right.
Of course. So here's a couple of examples of the tweets that are on their radar that they feel like he has to fix in some way or make up for, right? Gets into an argument with this guy named Roger Palfrey about the environment. The guy says, based on the record of human behavior, we are already overpopulating this small world. Any arguments I have heard for supporting such a large human population completely overlook the huge loss of species and ecosystems resulting from our self-absorbed attention. And he tweets back, you're free to leave at any point. Gives him a little snark there, right? I mean, not a particularly great tweet, but do you have to go get re-educated for that?
Right.
Do they have to give you a struggle session for that in order to keep your livelihood? Here, interim Ottawa chief says he is working with social services and Freedom Convoy protesters to, quote, have children removed from the area prior to any sort of police action. Children removed. How exactly? Why exactly? By whom exactly? Sent to where exactly? And for how long exactly? Think this through, Canadians. This is a bad decision. Again, what there warrants the need for re-education.
Right. He's saying what gives them the right to remove people's children for their dissenting political views.
Right. Exactly.
What gives them that right?
Right, exactly. Talk about family separation, right? He put up another couple of tweets, which I'm not going to share. The one where he kind of body shamed the Sports Illustrated woman, saying that she's not attractive because she was a little heavier than the average model.
Little Zoftig.
I thought that was mean. I mean, not everybody weighs 13 pounds like Jordan Peterson. Some people are attracted to women with a little more meat on the bones. I think that's fine. I personally, in my taste, I thought that woman looked just fine. I thought it was perfectly fine to have her on the cover of the magazine. So I don't want to go down that hole. So I think he was an asshole for tweeting that out. Like I said, I think the guy's a very mediocre talent, and I think a lot of what he says is shitty. But once again, I've never seen such draconian enforcement of such boilerplate ideology as we're seeing now. Because it's not even like the people running the show. It's not like Trudeau and Biden are bringing us into this better future. They're not. We're just stuck in this stalemate and stagnation and decline and decay. And the idea that no one is allowed to explore alternatives to that anymore, without going through this process of you have to be re-educated now to get your mind right. Mind right behind what?
Right.
Mind right behind what? Even if you were bringing us into this better age, I still, as a free speech and free thought absolutist, more or less, would not agree with this. But okay, if you are actually dealing with the environment in a serious way, if you're actually delivering healthcare and housing to people, at least you could say you're paying us for it. You can't even say that anymore. This is just a cabal of normies who have made out well since the end of the Cold War in this end of history period. And any threats to that stagnation from the left or the right are just pushed out. Jordan Peterson, one of the other reasons they have such a hard on for this guy is because in a lot, like he talks a lot of politics, yes, but he also does a lot of motivational stuff, right? You know, he is a therapist and he speaks a lot about self-help and things like that. And he puts a lot of emphasis on the family, on traditional masculine roles within households, traditional feminine roles within households. He doesn't talk about religion that much, but he talks about the core sort of traditional family structure very much.
Right.
This freaks a lot of these, what Glenn Greenwald would call left liberals out. Not so much like the socialist left, not our kind of left, but it freaks a lot of these New World Order sort of center left people out because the center left, the establishment left, who we all know, okay, I think I pretty much made that case, right? They control just about every meaningful institution in the world, be it politics, finance, the media, academia. The reason why they get freaked out by talk of traditional family and even religion, and like I said, Peterson doesn't dabble in that too much, it's because the church and the family are these sort of rogue institutions that they have not brought to heel yet, right? You can't just staff a family with your people. Right. And the church is obviously set up where you can't staff the church with your people. Right. And so these are the two institutions that they have not dominated yet, that they have not just imposed their will on yet. Whereas in the media, they have everyone in the media is trained like a dog. Academia, same thing. Finance, same thing. Politics now, same thing. And so when you start talking about institutions that are out of their control, there is very much an effort to undermine them and undermine people who advocate for them. And I think that's a big part of just the pile-on of this guy who, like, you know, we've said it a million times. He's definitely not our favorite. That's why we don't talk about him very much, right? I don't even find him all that interesting, honestly. But that's why they make such a villain of him, I think. That has a lot to do with it.
That's what's most interesting to me about him, that they are so obsessed with him. Right. It's because it's so clearly simply because he dissents. That's it. Because his dissents are not even nearly as extreme as these dissents could be. You know, you want to take exception to Matt Walsh. I can understand that. I do in many areas. Jordan Peterson is not that. He's a psychologist. This is what they really hate about him. He's credentialed and he didn't bend the knee to them. That is really the crux of the issue. Now, what his motivational stuff for young men, look, like I said, I agree with some of it. I don't agree with some of it. This is what I will say. If this left paradise that you all have created is working out so goddamn well, why are the rates of teen self-harm, mental illness, generally, suicide attempts, depression, medication, why have those all exploded? Why is this the most mentally ill generation in history? We have never been more liberal left, never, as a society.
Right,
and
socially speaking,
and mental health has never been worse. So are you really in a position to so cavalierly dismiss the idea that, hey, man, maybe most people are happier with traditional nuclear family values? I mean, I'm not that person. I didn't live that life. And that horse left the barn a long time ago. That's never going to be my life. But do I feel, as somebody who's lived his whole life as a bohemian and just doing whatever I wanted, do I think that's for most people? No, not really. No, I don't. I think most people are happier with something more traditional. So
like me.
Well, it's true.
I'm like what I have. No, it's true. It's true. I mean, that was always
so. Can you just completely dismiss him telling young men? Because to have that kind of a life, you cannot breed the kind of men you're breeding. You don't want all of these men being self-hating, bowing their head constantly, embarrassed for masculine traits. That's not who you want to try to build a family with.
Right. I mean, right. I mean, part of the reason, one of the things that is sort of that I've always found interesting about myself, not to do too much like introspection on the air, but yes, I've always been very left wing, but I've always lived a fairly traditional conservative lifestyle. I mean, my wife and I have been together now for 12 years. We got together in our early 20s,
right.
23. So, I've always had the attitude of a bohemian, but I've never really lived that. My life experience is more, normie than that. And so I think I kind of have my feet in both pools in that sense, which is why I can sort of recognize that. But it is something that I recognize because when he talks about, like I said, like these like traditional family roles, it's not big. Like that's certainly not bigoted. Right? That's certainly not a guy trying to corrupt society.
Right.
Now
That's
the people,
it.
now
To
the
make
right
him this
wingers who want the
boogeyman.
state to impose those values on everybody,
Right.
that's where it's out of bounds. Right.
Right.
That's
Right.
where it's out of bounds. But just
that was what I
espousing those values as virtues is not out of bounds. In fact, most people kind of subscribe to that, which is probably why he has a big following, right? Despite being a fairly uninteresting, mediocre talent.
Well, and that's where you
And
really
you have to give it up. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you do have to give it up to him, as mediocre as he is intellectually, in my view. I shouldn't even say intellectually. I'm not calling him stupid, but he's just, as personalities go, as media people go, he's not particularly interesting to me. He does have the guts to tell these people to fuck off, as he should. And so got to give him credit for that. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's what they really hate him for. He's challenging their program. And rather than to just honestly debate him, they want to deplatform him. They want to remove him from the conversation. They are no longer willing to accept dissent and debate. And it is very much, you were talking about the right wing wanting to impose those family values on people. Well, that's what I grew up with. And so you took a left oppositional pose to the cultural institutions.
That's right.
Which
You were a
tended in
teenager
that
during the Reagan
direction.
years, right? Yeah.
Right. Which bedtime for democracy, all that shit.
Right.
Now it's the opposite. The people trying to impose those views on you are what would traditionally be considered left, which puts people who are genuinely left in a very strange position with some very strange bedfellows. Because, Jordan Peterson, you go, man. You go sue those motherfuckers up in Canada because they have absolutely no right to be going after your right to practice, even though I'm sure he's not practicing anymore. I mean, I could be wrong, but I really doubt as a media figure he still has clients. But nonetheless, that's beside the point. And something he said in his tweet thread about this is every professional in Canada should be worried about this. Because if they can do it to me, all of the licensing boards can do this. Whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a doctor, they can come after all of you for wrongthink.
Also,
once you establish this precedent.
Attitudes towards family, attitudes towards sexuality, even attitudes towards politics occasionally comes up in counseling, psychological counseling. So if you're going to, as the state, enforce certain rules about what these counselors themselves are allowed to think, what these psychiatrists themselves are allowed to think, that is meddling in the relationship, in my opinion, between the patient and the doctor. How is it not?
Right.
How is it not?
Right.
That's
what
like
if they're both right wing? What if the doctor and the patient are right wing? Is that not allowed?
Right.
They're not
Exactly.
allowed. You can't counsel MAGA people. They're not allowed to have treatment.
Right. Exactly. It's just so vulgar. It's just so obscene to be imposing these ideas on people. And what makes them especially vulgar, what makes this especially obscene is that the ideas they are imposing are so mediocre. Like, at least if they were better ideas, you could at least respect it from that angle. Like, if they were really these innovative, like, just like humanity forward, like solutions to big problems that we weren't able to solve before, right? If they had some magic pill, even then it would be dystopian to do what they're doing. But at least you could say, well, at least they're onto something. They're not. I mean, they're forcing you to conform to fucking Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden, like the most mediocre people, in hundreds of years to be in charge of people. Right. And to what end?
A medicated generation.
Right. Yeah.
Generation
exactly.
on Xanax.
Right.
That's
exactly.
what you've given the world. That's what your great social revolution has been.
Exactly.
People who are so drugged from childhood, they don't know how to function without being medicated.
Right. Exactly. All right. Let's read some of these. Virtuoso, thank you, my friend. I agree. Jordan Peterson's voice deserves a cease and desist letter. Yes, that was in reference to Russell's Kermit the Frog joke. Thank you, Virtuoso. I appreciate that. I think we have at least one more super chat. Very active chat tonight. Jordan Peterson told Kyle that he isn't sure whether adults should be allowed to transition. If that isn't authoritarian, I don't know what is. Thank you again for the $5, Mike. We actually covered that debate. I might even be able to find a link for it to drop in the chat, but it was a while ago. But if you search DueDissidence, Kyle Jordan Peterson, I think you'll find that. We actually did cover that. And we actually agreed with you that, yes, he shouldn't go there. You should not go there and say that it should not be a right, that people should not have the option to do it, especially when they are of age. So, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, is that it?
Sure. We're not like Jordan Peterson stands. But
right.
but you cannot go after somebody's professional license, or you should not be able to go after somebody's professional license because you don't like their politics. And we've gotten a good taste of that here. What's frightening in Canada is they do not have the First Amendment, so they're able to take it to this extreme. Here, you'd be able to sue if they tried to do this.
Tusker, thank you. Tusker, I appreciate that. Have you guys seen this place rules? The liberals he had highlights come off just as crazy as the 1/6ers. I have not seen that. What is that? This place rules. Is that like a documentary or something? Or because we have the Dissident Film Club now, would be interested in maybe watching that.
Oh, you know what? That's on HBO right now.
What is
it's
it?
It's a documentary about 1/6.
Okay.
So
the liberals he had highlighted.
I would imagine, if I'm reading this right, because this is on HBO, this is a mainstream documentary. So if the right wingers come off as if the liberals come off as just as crazy, the people who made it didn't realize that because they're in that bubble. Like I'm sure HBO did not do a documentary that makes the liberals look bad.
Yeah. Interesting. But I would be interested
not on purpose.
So now we have, for those who are new to the channel, and even for those who have been with the channel for a while, we have a new continuing film series called the Dissident Film Club. We have new episodes premiering every Friday night at 9 p.m. And some episodes might premiere throughout the week in between them. We're trying to get an episode review of The Menu, the new HBO Max movie. That was trending on Twitter yesterday, and Russell thought it was pretty good, and so I'm going to try to watch that. I might even be able to watch it tonight since we didn't run as long as I thought we would. I had a feeling this was going to be like an epic 3-hour stream since we had a lot of topics. We were going to actually cover the arrest of Ashley Babbitt's mother, but I thought, given the events unfolding in Brazil, it would not be smart to try and get nuanced about 1/6 on a night like this because they're experiencing their own thing there. So I scratched that just because I think the timing wouldn't quite work out in a way that lends itself to people being open-minded enough to hear what we have to say about that. But obviously, pretty tumultuous stuff happening in Brazil. Lula was obviously evacuated, so he's okay, which is good. And we obviously hope things resolve for the best there.
Oh, all right. So Tusker says that portrayal is intentional. All right. Well, so now we'll watch it. You got us. Cyrus
coming through, man. Cyrus is my new favorite audience member. He's new to the show, but thank you so much, Cyrus. I appreciate that very, very much. And thank you so much for
Cyrus,
being
man.
Here.
Let's hang, man. We're gonna go to my favorite club. You're paying.
You're paying. Didn't Cyrus say Cyrus is from Westchester, right? So yeah.
No,
Cyrus can catch the Metro North to the 125th Street stop.
Are you named for the assassinated gang leader in the Warriors?
You guys should book a table at
Now that one I got
Rayo's, right? Rayo's, what is that?
Yeah,
113?
we'll go to Rayo's. Yeah.
Yeah, that's close to Russell. It's close to you. Just take the train up to Harlem 125th. Get a table. Get a table at Rayo's. Russell, you must know somebody who can get you a table at Rayo's.
Nobody knows somebody who can get them a table at Rayo's.
Between all your mob history and your New York showbiz.
If I pulled the right threads, I could probably find somebody. I've never really been that interested.
Okay, so during the lockdowns, when all the restaurants were doing takeout, my friend Justin actually got takeout from Rayo's, because even though they notoriously don't do that, it's like this super exclusive restaurant where it's impossible to get a reservation, impossible to get a table. Doing takeout would kind of ruin the mystique of the place. But obviously during the lockdowns, they had to keep some money coming in. So they did takeout, and he got takeout, and he said, it was all right. I mean, it's more style than substance. It's more mystique than anything else.
All right, Cyrus, I did figure it was for the Persian King, but if you haven't seen it, check out The Warriors. It's one of my favorite movies. Okay, Rayo's, the reason I never bothered with Rayo's, I grew up in New York where when you went to a pizzeria, the usual setup was the sons in the family made the pizza, and the old Sicilian ladies in the back made the Italian food. Now, a lot of pizza places will still make you Italian specialties, but unless you don't value your life or your digestive system, you would never order that today. But back then, you would get manicotti and ziti and ravioli made by two little old ladies from Palermo. And I promise you, what I got then for $3 was better than what you're going to get at Rayo's today.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't doubt it. There were a couple places like that in East Williamsburg, right where I lived when I first moved to the city. Graham Avenue is its own little mini Arthur Avenue. Fantastic Italian food. Graham Avenue Meats was a great sandwich place. The guy's mother made eggplant parm, lasagna, all that stuff. Poured probably 2 bottles of red wine in the sauce. I mean, the sauce tasted like a Montepulciano. Like, it tasted like an Italian red wine. But if you like red wine, it was actually it was really good. And very, very reasonable in terms of price and things like that. That block was a great block. But that block was the kind of thing that was like the really old school thing. Like, you don't usually see the old guys be so outward about the kind of guys that they are. That was like 40 years ago. You have the guys walking around in the fila suits and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like I was eating a sandwich outside one of the places. I won't say which. Guy comes out with 2 other guys. He says, "Listen, we don't fuck around now with $60,000. Okay, we got to make this right." Just like talking business right out in the open, screaming. It was like, out of like a period movie. But great stuff. Great stuff over there.
Yeah, in a worlds colliding kind of way. So when I went away to college, I was exposed to these, very waspy people that I had never been around. And I took home this, tall, skinny wasp girl that I was dating. And I took her to this restaurant where there was like a 400-pound ape sitting watching the door. And, we go in there and we sit down and we order. And, I'm just thinking to myself, how much this girl has no idea what's going on here. It's not her world. Right. She doesn't get it.
Right.
What do you think he's there for? Because he's a great host. It was very strange mixing those worlds.
Well, there was a pizzeria right here in my hometown that when I was growing up, it was great. And turns out the guys ended up getting busted for selling drugs out of the apartment above the pizzeria. And I always knew something was up with the place, because you'd go in there to like get a sandwich or a slice of pizza, and there would be like 6 guys behind the counter, all with biceps like, as thick as a tree. Like, there would be 6 of them there. And you're like, this is a very odd staffing choice for a pizzeria. But it turns out it was more than a pizzeria.
Of course. Well, you know the backstory on Ray's Pizza?
No, you're talking about the original New York Rays.
Yep. All right. So I'll tell you all, I'll give you all a good bedtime story here.
See, fucking Sam Seder ain't giving you this. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Where are you going to get this material?
Yeah. Okay, so if you go around New York, you'll find a lot of places with different versions of the name Ray's Pizza. There's famous Ray's, there's original Ray's, there's original Ray's, there's a not Ray's. The actual Ray's was in Little Italy. Currently the place that's there is called Prince Street Pizza. It was started by a guy named Ralph Cuomo. And like a lot of Italians, he was just a great home cook. So the pizza got famous throughout the city. And for New York, yeah, we take pride in our bagels, but not like pizza. Pizza, you're going to be on the top 10 list of every newspaper if you have the best pizza. Lines around the block all the time. So everyone starts stealing the name. So why don't they sue? You can't just make famous original Amos cookies and not get sued. Well, because the business was not really the pizza. The pizza getting that famous was kind of an act of hubris. He should have made worse pizza given what the real business was. He was a soldier in the Lucchese crime family, and they were distributing heroin out of Ray's Pizza. So when they got busted by the New York press, this came to be known as the Pizza Connection. So one of the reasons, now I will say this, for me, the best, what I would call a traditional New York street slice is Prince Street Pizza. And they say when they bought the business after Ralph Cuomo died, they got the recipe. They got that original Ray's
Interesting.
recipe.
I mean, that is actually a decent point. Prince Street Pizza was on my radar before it became this famous thing. You used to be able to just go into Prince Street, get a slice, sit down, and eat it. Now there's lines out the door. You can't get there.
Oh, yeah.
That's the Soho
All right,
Square.
hang on.
The
I'm gonna give
pepperoni
you...
slices, delicious. Those are fantastic. Those are really, really delicious.
There's an umami going on with that sauce that's just very special.
And the crust itself is very special because it's not the traditional New York thin, but it's not a Sicilian either. It's like this kind of flaky pan crust going on. Very, very crispy on the outside, but really soft and fluffy on the inside. The uncured pepperoni is fantastic. Yeah, Prince Street is amazing. I was putting that on food tours before it was famous.
The lines around the block.
No, now you can't get in.
Now, all right. I'm going to give you want to know Mafia today? I'm going to give you part 2 of this story. So back when I was still married, for real married, I took the wife to an Italian restaurant in the East Village that had been there since 1904. And it's called Lanza's. The guy who founded it was actually cousins of a mob guy, Joey Sox Lanza, who was in Luciano's organization. But he was a straight guy. He had a restaurant. But it was a big mob hangout back in the day. So I take the wife there, and kind of going back to bringing a WASP girl to Queens, this was a very similar experience because my wife from Australia didn't know what she walked into. So we walk in, there's a guy there who I know is a mob guy just from being from New York. He's wearing the black turtleneck with the chains on the outside, with the blown back white John Gotti style haircut with a date half his age that he definitely couldn't have gotten if he was not a mob guy. So whatever, man. I don't say anything to her. I grew up in New York where you don't talk about those things. I would tell her when we get home, maybe.
Right.
So we sit down. And so the woman behind me is falling down drunk. And the mob guy is talking to her. And I hear him go, "Oh, you're from the neighborhood. You must know Joe Beck." She goes from 0 to 105 seconds the way an old drunk lady will.
Right.
"How dare you talk about my Uncle Joe Beck? I don't talk about Joe Beck in public." Making this big scene. Go, hey, no disrespect. I just thought you probably knew him. "How dare you talk about my Uncle Joe Beck?" Finally, now this shows you how much weaker the mob is than they used to be. Because back in the day, this was something the Godfather got right. Whenever women got out of hand, the man who was perceived to be in authority over her in the Godfather films would be summoned.
Right. Well, yeah, of course.
Fredo, Mikey says, "If you can't handle this, I have to." Right. Back in the day, they would have called her uncle or her brother or her cousin. Right. "Hey, you got to come over here. You know, your relative's getting out of control in the restaurant here. He's embarrassing John." You know, guy grabs his date and runs out. Right. He does not want to wait to have any kind of police involvement or anything.
Oh, of course. He
runs out of the place. So now, of course, we're eavesdropping. So she's making phone calls. yeah, so there was this connected guy in here, and he was talking about my Uncle Joe Beck. I never wanted nothing to do with those people. I earned every nickel I made. Right. So that was why she was embarrassed about it, because she didn't want to be connected.
Right.
So now look, for every mobster you heard of, there's 100 guys you never heard of. I never heard of Joe Beck. So I go home and I look up Joe Beck. So Joe Beck was the captain in the Lucchese family over Ralph Cuomo. He was the one who actually ran that heroin distribution ring out of Ray's. He had 2 brothers. She was the daughter of one. So
it should have been Beck's Pizza, really, but that doesn't sound good.
It should have been Beck's. Yeah, well, he did the cooking, right?
Wouldn't have caught on. Exactly. Yep. That's a funny story. It's a great story. It's a great New York story. We missed this super chat earlier, Mike. Rooting for the Packers or the Lions tonight? Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I don't really care. Should I root for the Packers or the Lions? I guess the libs are going to be rooting for the Lions, right? Since they hate the Packers, since they hate Aaron Rodgers. But I really don't care. Doesn't matter to me. The New York Football Giants are in the playoffs again. That's going to be fun. But America is going to be rooting for the Buffalo Bills, quite obviously, during this postseason to win it all. Not just because of Hamlin's injury, which is obviously horrible, and so it'll be just a great morale booster if they would win. But obviously,
a lot going on in Buffalo.
Well, that's what I mean. The horrific snowstorm that killed like dozens of people. Be a great feel-good story for the city to win the Super Bowl. And they haven't won in a very long time. So it's going to be tough for America not to rally behind the Bills this postseason. But the Giants are in, so I'm a very casual football fan. I don't follow it that closely, but I do enjoy the postseason. So yeah, rooting for the Giants and the Bills.
Oh, when I get back from India, I'm planning on buying property in Buffalo. So if they win the Super Bowl, I'll take it as a sign.
Yeah, exactly. Aaron, I think you're British, right? Is the Super Bowl on tonight? No, my friend, no. If it were, no one would be watching this show. We don't do nighttime shows on Super Bowl Sundays. So like Super Bowl Sunday will be on at like 4 or something like that because we can't compete with the Super Bowl. No, this is the last week of the regular season. Then I think playoffs start next week. All righty. Is that everything we got?
That's everything.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. This was a wonderful crowd in here. We really appreciate you guys coming. Fan of the day goes to Cyrus, the MVP of the stream. Goes to our new friend Cyrus.
Cyrus the King.
Make sure you show up every time.
Warriors come out to play.
Yeah, right. He actually gave you a chat. He actually wrote that in. Yep, here we go. Yep. Oops. There it is.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw that.
Very good crowd in here tonight.
And he's a Keith Haring fan. I like this guy.
There you go. Well, see, yeah, we have a lot of new viewers in the stream tonight because we had a lot of new subscribers off that Anna Kasparian video. A lot of new ones. Let's see, where are we up to right now? I'll check the ticker here. Maybe we can get a few new signups on the way out. Yeah, just sign up before you leave. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel. You have nothing to lose by subscribing. If you subscribe in a couple weeks, you don't like the show, just unsubscribe. But make sure you subscribe. Just in case. Alrighty, everybody. Well, this was a really fun one. Oh, Taya. Taya is a patron and a friend and a supporter. Thank you, Taya, with the $5 super sticker. We appreciate that very, very much. You guys are awesome. We will see you guys. Well, we're going to be back on Thursday with another stream, but we're going to try to premiere another film club episode. We're going to try to watch that Menu film on HBO. And maybe have that up Tuesday or Wednesday night for you guys. So stay tuned. Like I said, that's why you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell so you get notified when we go live or drop a new video. And we hope to see you guys back here Thursday night. Oh, yeah, that's one other thing we did want to mention. Russell and I were talking about, since the Thursday night shows seem to go well, we're thinking of moving the Thursday streams from the afternoon to evenings permanently. Start them at 8 p.m. Yeah. All right, good. Or will our fans be watching Tucker Carlson at 8 p.m.? Because, there's such crossover.
Probably.
Our fans are such simps for Tucker Carlson. We don't want to compete with Tucker. Maybe nobody will watch the show. But I have a feeling we'll do all right. So we're going to switch to 8 p.m.
That's why our corporate name is the Fifth Reich.
Yeah, right. every Thursday at 8 p.m. Sundays here, 7 and 7:30. We usually go on at 7 on Sundays. We've been a little irregular with the schedule lately since the plague fell upon my house. It's just easier to help get the kids to bed and start here at 7:30, 6:30. With prep time is a little bit chaotic with the plague circulating in my home. But hopefully that's out of our systems by the time we see you all again. The Young Turks has Katzenberg's cash. DueDissidence has Cyrus cash. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they have the Katzenbergs.
I'll
We
take
have
Cyrus any day. It doesn't
We'll take
come
Cyrus
with the same
over to
strings.
Katzenbergs any day. Our new benefactor, Mr. Cyrus there. Thank you guys very much. It was great to see you all again. We had a wonderful crowd. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Patreon.com/DueDissidence. Thank you guys very much once again. Be safe. Be well. We'll see you next time.
Please clap.